Okay, for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. I see we have a couple people that are kind of making their way in, but since we only have 30 minutes, I want to kind of kick things off. First of all, thank you so much, everyone. Welcome to one of our very first roundtables at our very first ever virtual World Workplace. We are super excited to be here, really excited to be able to get together. I'm going to run through a couple housekeeping items before I introduce to you the two facilitators that are joining us today. Just a couple of reminders, everybody, if you would please go ahead and turn on your camera, but also keep your mic muted unless you're speaking. We are recording this session, so everything that we discuss today can be saved and viewed later through the World Workplace website. Again, we do only have 30 minutes. We do want everyone to interact, but please keep your questions and comments brief so that everyone that wants to participate has the opportunity to do so. Any additional information regarding today's topic can be found in IFMA's Knowledge Library. And lastly, guys, this is meant to be interactive, really organic conversation. So we want you guys to participate and have fun. This is meant to be as if we were all sitting at a big round table together discussing these topics. So we want to hear from you guys. We do have some questions that were sent in. You also have the opportunity to chat in some questions, and there is a raise your hand feature as well. So if you want to raise your hand or wave, I'm going to do my best. I'm here repping IFMA, so I'm going to kind of moderate things, keep us on track, and I'll keep an eye out for those questions and concerns and comments that come through. So I'll do my best. So I want to introduce our facilitators that we have with us today. We have Angel Doyle. She's a Senior Director of the Northeast Region of C&W Services. She's been in facilities management for 25 years. She started off as a project manager in construction. She graduated from Northeastern University with a degree in mechanical engineering, and she is on the executive board of directors for BOMA Boston currently. And then secondly, we have Brian Haines, and Angel is over there, wave Angel. She has the beautiful house with the Christmas tree. We also have Brian Haines, I'm sorry. He's been working in the facilities industry for more than 30 years. In the last 23 years, he's worked for software companies, including Autodesk and FM Systems. He is a graduate of the University of Arizona College of Architecture, and he's also the co-chair of the Kobe Task Group for the National Institute of Building Science. So on that note, I say we go ahead and kick things off. The first topic that we want to visit is how to prioritize your day. So Brian or Angel, I'm going to pass it to you to go ahead and kick off the combo.
Sure, Angel, do you want to go first? You're muted.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, by organizing my day, I wanted to make sure I organized my start to this meeting, which was to welcome everyone for joining us. Thank you so much. It's really a great opportunity to actually talk to different people and get different perspectives. It's interesting because one of the things in my career that I've always struggled with, especially when I was younger, was prioritizing and making sure that I did track my to-dos. So it's actually kind of one of the keys to my success in life is looking at organizing my day in a way that wasn't chaotic. I tend to get distracted pretty easy. I'm kind of a high level thinker. That's why I'm in strategy and not a detailed thinker. I've managed a lot of people in my time, and I realize that all of us are different and need different things to stay on track in our days. Some people are extremely detail oriented, and I find that I'm not. So I will be coming from the perspective of someone who needs structure and puts in place structure to help me organize my to-do list. So that's the perspective I'll hold today.
So thank you, Brian. My perspective is very similar. I have the same kind of issues where I need to be more strategic and I can't get into the weeds as much. Otherwise, I just totally lose it. So, my perspective is to try to strategize maybe the night before what I need to do for the next day. We all try to do that. And I think we've talked about this, Brian and I and Brittany, prior to this call, that, getting sucked into the emails first thing in the morning can really derail you from, what you need to do in the day. So for me, I've been in the last couple of months, especially with COVID, because emails are out of control. I actually block out a couple hours every day to, basically said, this is my time to get things done that I need to do. So that's, one of the things that I've been doing lately to try to, steer my day in a way that I can have my projects and I can kind of still respond to others.
Yeah, and it's
Absolutely.
interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned email, Angel, because email is like that rabbit hole that I tend to try to
Absolutely.
avoid in the mornings. It's not just email, but it's a lot of social media platforms and things like that. If I look at that first thing in the morning before I think about what my priorities are going to be for the day, I end up going off on tangents. So um, I think I had shared in the last conversation, the last time you and I had talked, Angel, that one of the things that I like to do is to leave my work up from the previous day, what I ended
Right.
on, so that I know where I ended. And, I don't just leave my computer on. I put my computer to sleep, but I do leave the last document or PowerPoint or email up that I was working on, just to sort of a level set my day in the morning, to make sure that I'm tying up those loose ends. And that's another sort of technique that I use as well.
Exactly.
Great. Those are both some great tips and a lot of good input. I'd love to open this one up before we move on to the next topic, just to see if anybody else has any input or anything they would like to share with their personal approach.
Yeah, and I just to make sure that you take your mute off before you start speaking. It's
Yes.
Well, and that's what I was having trouble with. Hi, I'm Becky Beilharz. I'm out of the Kansas
Hi.
City region. One of the things that really helps me is before I leave the day before, I do a little organizing too. And I use the colored flags, which are called categories. And I use the flags and the categories in my Outlook. So when I first get in the morning, I will briefly go through all my emails. Some of mine I'm on a couple of different internal email distributions, and I'll get the same thing 2 or 3 times. So I can just so a lot of times I can go through my emails pretty quick. I color code them. So like yellow is something I have to review. All my, FM engagement, anything like that needs to sit down and do some reading, I'll make it yellow. If it's on a certain project, I'll make it that color. If it's something as a facility manager, if it's something for the building, I'll make that color. If I really need to get back to it, I don't have to answer it immediately, but if I really need to get back to it, I'll use the flags. And there's a today flags, a tomorrow flags, week, next week. And you can tell, I call myself a type A-. I'm not quite type A, but I call it myself an A-. But I'll use the flags like, okay, I need to do this today. Oh, that can wait till tomorrow. Or sometimes if I send an email to someone and I get and I'm waiting for their response, I'll make it a tomorrow, or I'll make it this week, depending on how pressing it is. And at the end of each day, I go through and category, and then that's a reference for me during the day. If I take a break, if I go to a meeting and come back to my computer or something, then I'm like, okay, what was I working on and what is a priority? And I'll check those flags. And then at the end of each day, I'll sort them and saying, okay, I'll leave something in today if it's a hot priority because it'll show up as red, or I'll do it tomorrow. So I live by those and I love them. It saves me a lot of time. So
That's
Becky,
great.
I was just sitting here taking notes. You should actually teach a class on how to do that, because I have noticed, I've seen colleagues and I'm like, are you using a different application than I am? Because their Outlook calendar is all colored and very organized. So that's actually quite powerful. That's great.
I actually got it prepared. My coworker saw it, and then our boss was like, okay, I want everyone to prepare something they can teach the rest of our group. And then they never did it. We got sidetracked and bosses changed or something, but I've shown others to do it. It would be about a 5-minute class. If in all honesty, if at the end we're twiddling our thumbs, I can show it to you, but it's really simple.
Yeah, I do a similar, but not as many colors. I just I'll use the flag for the things I have to get back, just like you. I'll sort of scan through the emails. I don't know how many of you guys are just replied all to death, but I get that's a killer, right? I probably get 100 reply all in a day, and a lot of those are just, I guess they're need to know, or sometimes they're really not needed to know, but we just have to read them because we got copied on them. So I find that when I have to go through those really quick, and a lot of times it's when I'm on my iPhone and I'm mobile because I'm moving from building to building. I have to reflag. Otherwise, if I dare look at them and I somehow or other unhighlight it, I'm dead. It's like, wait a minute, I forgot to do something. I forgot to read something. I forgot to, get back to whomever. So yeah, I think the flag thing is a great idea. I'm only a one flag gal though, on multiple.
Actually, I know some of you might recognize my name. Excuse me. I had sent out an email asking for questions and comments from the registrants for this session, and I feel like this is a good time to bring up one of the suggestions and questions that came across. So one of the registrants, and feel free to speak up, I won't say names, but feel free to pipe in if you want to kind of add to this once I'm finished. A suggestion we got was to keep unrealistic tasks off of your to-do list. And that was followed up with a question of how do senior leaders determine the valid requests from the staff that they're getting, with the acknowledgement that, of course, all issues should be concerned, or all issues should be addressed. But this person also mentioned that seniors often feel overly concerned and they have staff has unrealistic expectations that leadership gives more attention to than necessary. So I think the takeaway from this is kind of how does senior leadership determine what tasks are more important than others and how to prioritize those?
That's my question. And I call them, I have a lot of whiny ass people I work with. They're, they want something exactly the way they want it. It's an unrealistic expectation, my leadership, and it's the well, I shouldn't say it's just not high up leadership. It's all the way up, mine and up. They want to give credence to what these people are saying. And I want to go, you got to be kidding me. This is a stupid request. Can't you see it's a stupid request? And I can't say it that way. So I need help in how do I get management to realize it's a stupid request without telling them it's a stupid request. So anyway.
I might ask it a different way. Is it you have to convince management that it's a stupid request? Or do you have to communicate with those people that are requesting that in a way that helps better manage their expectations of what can be done and in what manner?
But maybe a little bit of both. I mean, I really do work with people that it's unrealistic.
I mean, because we know sometimes there are, as facility managers, we get a lot of silly questions. But one of the things I recently was talking to some students about was, the difference between, because perception's reality, the difference between what this person thinks should happen and what we know can happen, and how do we talk to them to manage that expectation and kind of level set that. And it almost becomes more of a customer relationship management or communication issue than it does I guess it impacts your to-dos, but how do you get on their level and talk to them about that so they can see it from your perspective, why that might not be your priority, but why that's okay, and that they don't have to be upset about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot.
I was gonna say I was gonna let somebody else respond, but go ahead.
I think for me, from a senior leadership perspective, it's collaborative agreement on priorities. But that's because that's my personality type. And I think that comes into play for many of the, I think many of the lessons that I've learned in my career is that different personality types need different ways of agreement with them. And mine is a very collaborative methodology. Whereas I don't know if you've ever seen the Insights color wheel. It's an exam that you can take to show you what your personality type is for dealing with other leaders. It's actually been kind of fascinating for me because the opposite of me is what's cold blue. I'm sunshine yellow, which means I'm highly collaborative. Cold blue is more introverted, detail oriented. They're completely opposite. So I was always trying to communicate to them with passion. And we have to do this because I feel like it's the best thing that we could ever do. Completely lands with a thud, right? It doesn't mean anything to them. And I realized that the communication of priorities came down to me literally sitting down with a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint and having agreement with them because they could literally see it in a list. Feelings weren't involved. It was an agreed to priorities. And so that helped, that actually helped me in that instance to learn that everyone communicates differently, and agreeing what the priorities are is definitely going to be dependent on what that personality type is.
Brian, I love that you brought that up about different styles of communication. You're absolutely right. Everybody is going to receive information differently and portray information differently. But actually, this kind of leads us right into our second topic that we were going to get into today. The second question we wanted to kind of explore is, what are some tools that you can use to improve and add value to your communications?
Well, I actually have a tracking sheet that we run with our various managers. It's called Smart Sheet. Probably you guys are familiar with it. And what that helps us do, because we have like multiple accounts everywhere, and I have multiple account managers and operations managers that support those accounts. And we kind of want to be updated without having to, drag everybody into calls all the time. So the Smart Sheet is obviously shared with everybody. They can tap into that at any point in time. But what I ask them to do is just give me a couple of points on the Smart Sheet of, where everybody's at, anything critical, that we should know or not know, and just, some of the day-to-day operational things. And obviously, if it's super important and it's red flagged or whatever, we basically, the emails work, right? But this is just a way to kind of cut down on some of the emails, but be able to have a, kind of a baseline of all our different locations in our accounts and what's going on, sort of as an FYI, so that we kind of cut back on all of those emails. And it works really nicely because my managers are now informed about each other's business, which I don't mind. I'm a collaborator too, by the way. I want us to all work together. We're a team. And sometimes we'll have on the Smart Sheet, like, I'm looking to fill a position, I'm desperate here, and it's in a comment. So one of my other managers will say, oh, so-and-so is looking to fill a position. I know somebody at another site, maybe they are a candidate. And it's like that automatic communication, which, as they're reading it, instead of relying on me to send an email blast, hey guys, we're having a hard time filling this position, my team knows automatically. So we try to update that often. And, it was paramount that we did it a lot more during COVID. So that's kind of one of the tools I use as we communicate, as well as emails, obviously.
Yeah, and I've tried Asana, I've tried Monday, I tried things that allow me to get to a great level of detail, but I don't typically function at a great level of detail. So sending myself reminders on my phone works really well. And also, I know it's going to sound, pretty old school, but I write things down on a list next to my computer to help me. I'm definitely a creature of habit, and having having things in the same spot every day is really, you guys are going to start thinking I'm like nuts or something, but I'm not. I'm I'm pretty good at what I do, but I have learned what my weaknesses over the years are. My weaknesses are detail, and I have to get into the rhythm of having things in the same place every single day. Like, this is a coffee cup. I don't think you guys can see this. My sister gave me this coffee cup when I was in high school, and I still use the same coffee cup every single day, and it's always by my computer. So that's just sort of the way I operate. So I have the list, I have my phone, and I know where to get those things every day. Trying new things doesn't always work. Like I said, I've tried Monday and Asana and a lot of task-oriented solutions with my teams, but keeping that list manageable is really important. The top 3 or 4 priorities is probably enough for all of us, not the top 300 priorities, because when it's the top 300, none of them are really priorities. It's really really keeping it in tight, I think, and really forcing yourself to make the decision about what's most important.
So yeah, Carolyn, I was just gonna say, Carolyn was asking, has anyone heard of the Getting Things Done methodology? I have not heard of it. I would love to hear more.
Okay. There's another IFMA member from California who actually does presentations on it, but something I sat in with him talking about was, it's a book from David Allen, and he goes through how to like organize your to-do list and getting it off of that and managing it in a different way. And if it takes less than 5 minutes, you should just do it right then. And if it takes longer than that, putting it in a maybe partially a hybrid, like Becky's got all these flags and notes and and then yeah, limiting how many to-dos you actually try to tackle in a day and working on the prioritization like you talked about.
I love that. Could you name what that book was again, or who the author was?
It's called Getting Things Done, and I'll put the author in here. Oops.
And mine sounds complicated telling you, but once you know it, it's the simplest thing. But I do have to force myself some days to minimize my to-do list, to say, okay, what's the priority and what's the second priority, and not the whole list. Because the whole list, will end up taking, and I'll keep adding to it more as a reminder, it's got to be done sometime. So.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's for everybody. I have read the book and I've tried to implement it a few times, but that's why I'm still in like one of these breakouts where I'm hey, help me get back on track again.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up one other point, because we're talking about ways to manage it. We haven't really talked much about ways to keep from getting distracted, because I think that's the thing that takes us off of the to-dos. And it's interesting because we're all facilities professionals, and we're in really a service-oriented industry where we're supposed to be available to help people with their problems and solve their issues. But we rarely prioritize the most important thing is the last person who walked through the door. And that's usually, or the last person who, I would like to think has walked through the door. I think we're all sitting in our homes right now. But eventually we will be back in the office. And typically the highest priority is the last person who walked into our office. And that's difficult to ever tackle your top priorities when you're constantly being, like a pinball, right? You get pushed to something else. And I think drawing a fence around those hours somehow is important, like kind of blocking out time in your calendar when your door is going to be closed, unless it's a critical, something's on the floor, something's coming out of a pipe, or someone doesn't have a desk, then it's going to have to be a lower priority. And I think that's tough to do in a service-oriented industry, telling people that, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to get to that right now. I've got to do these other 5 things that are higher priorities. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I know that my team is very reactive to the client. It's super important, right? To your point, when they walk in the door, they're the most important person in the room. And they are somewhat geared to, addressing the client's need, no matter how little or how big it is immediately. It's kind of ingrained in their head. But what I try to do is instill in them that still don't let that derail you. Maybe set up office hours or a time that you interact with your customer, either daily or weekly, so that gives you some protection. I know for myself, as a leader, I kind of try to do the same, where I have a weekly roundup call with everybody to try to, again, cut down on a lot of phone calls or a lot of emails. I mean, they still keep coming, but I think if people know, okay, I'm going to be talking, to the group or to Angel, this time of the week, then, maybe it can wait. And then it just kind of comes down to the emergency. So, definitely giving some of those barriers as far as, or I should say guidelines, not barriers, but guidelines for, okay, open door this particular time, and, holding to those standard meetings so that you can kind of cut down on the casual. The other thing that I've tried to do too with my team is two things actually. I let them know that unless it's an emergency, that they need to wait for a response in an email. Don't expect that you're going to see a reply in 30 seconds or 30 minutes. So I've kind of said to my team now, because, you know, I'll get a text in the middle of the day, did you see my email? And I'll think, no, should I have? So, I mean, sometimes you need to get focused. You have a lot of meetings. So I've said to my team, I've set a rule, email me. I promise you, I will respond at, you know, by the next day. If it's super important, then text me and say, please, Angel, can you address this or look at this right away? And that's kind of what I do, because I've found coming in and starting the emails first thing, I get sucked right in. And before you know it, it's the end of the day. And all I've done is answered every single email within 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, did I really need to do that? So those are kind of, you know, training the people I work with to, you know, understand that that's what I'm trying to do so I can get other things done.
I'd like to, as we're kind of sliding into the last few minutes of today's session, I want to just open it up for questions to make sure we addressed everything and that you guys are really taking away everything that you came here for. So I'm going to give everyone just a minute just to open it up for questions.
I was just going to say, I think we're all here because we're in that FM industry and we're all pulled in 50,000 directions each day. So this is why we're here. I will say my company recently started sending out these reports using Microsoft. It's these insight reports.
Oh, yeah.
I found that super eye-opening. And it was like you had like 56 days of not being offline. I was like, oh gosh. But it also gives you this opportunity to add focus time into your calendar where like no notifications come through. That's been game changing in my world. Of course, I still find myself booking meetings over my focus time. But you know, that just like none of the notifications pop up, and that's really become helpful in the past. I've noticed it in the past like month or so. We've started to implement that stuff. But there's like this insights, and it tells you like you reply back to your emails too fast. And I was like, okay, sorry, I'll slow down. But yeah, it's really, that was an eye-opening kind of report. And so I get them almost daily now.
Yeah, and I like the insights but it just validates that I know I'm in meetings all day. It's like your collaborative time is crazy off the charts. It's nuts. I like it.
That's exactly what I do too. That's the program I've been using as well as the automatic. It finds the focus times in my calendar and locks me in. And I've been trying so hard not to overbook those. Yep, that's a good one.
Awesome.
We had a wellness month in October, and you got points for all these things you did. And one of them was if twice a day you took a 2-minute break. And to make sure I took a 2-minute break, I put it in my phone as kind of an alarm at 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And it would shift. And sometimes I'd keep hitting that snooze until I actually could take the 2-minute. But I kept it going for the most part since then, because it was just nice. I would just sit back, stop an email. If I wasn't in, I'd stop it, you know, doing what I was doing on an email or something, sit back, maybe read a joke or check the internet just to see what's going on in the world, or just something to break my day up. I might get up and walk around the building a little bit. I still go in once or twice a week. Because we have people, not many, but we still have a few people in the building or coming to the building for issues. And so I'll get up and walk around home, grab something to drink here or something like that. But I love it. That's one of the things I learned.
Absolutely. Thanks, Becky. Hey, we're right at time. I want to thank everybody for attending our first virtual roundtable at World Workplace. And I especially want to thank Brian and Angel for taking time out of your day to facilitate this for us. Just a reminder, everybody, this was recorded, so it will be available on the World Workplace website. I believe it's going to be available until December 31st. Give it some time. It's not going to be up immediately. We got to give these guys time to get it up there. But keep an eye on it if you want to share it or revisit it. And again, visit the Knowledge Library for some additional topics, some additional information on these topics. Thank you, everyone.